Hi, I'm Chip Hart. Today on the Guitar Hacker, we are going to look at Epiphones from the 70s. Kind of an interesting period, some interesting design attempts that they made. On the Hack of the Day, we are going to take this 12 string, which was sitting in an outdoor storage unit tuned up for 20 years, and try to turn the truss rod and adjust it. And then we're going to look at some previous mangled guitars from this show and look at some things in a guitar that you usually don't see. It's all today on the Guitar Hacker. So today we're talking about 1970s era Epiphone guitars. A company called Norlin owned Gibson and Epiphone at that time, and they did a number of things that were really not very good for building good sounding guitars. First of which is to put an adjustable bridge here. It's just not a good idea. You can turn these screws, lift the bridge up and down. It sucks the tone out of the guitar. The guitar has got to have a fixed bridge to transfer the energy from the strings to the soundboard. Second thing is that they have laminate tops on the Epiphones. The Gibsons did not, they had solid tops, but the Epiphones had laminate tops. Again, not very good for the sound, but it reduced warranty claims for Norlin, and they liked that a lot. The third thing, probably the worst thing, is the neck. The neck is a bolt-on neck. 4 little screws take this plate off, and there's 4 big screws underneath it, so it bolts on just like a electric guitar, like a Fender Stratocaster or something like that, which might be okay. You don't have that heel here, so you have a little better access to the fretboard and more comfort. But what happens is that the neck block and the neck are not strong enough, and so they pitch forward, and you will often see problems right here on the soundboard where the neck is pushing against it, pushing it down, and it's collapsing. Not good at all. And there's not much you can do about it. There's no, straightening it out or strengthening it that really works that I've seen. So overall, not recommended. But if you get one that survived like this one, even though it's got high action, and I'm going to try and do what I can to bring it down, this one sat in a storage locker for 20 years. My brother bought this in 1973, which was the impetus for me to go out and buy an Epiphone in 1975, because I saw him playing, and it's how I got into guitars. He was a big Gordon Lightfoot fan, so he wanted to get a 12 string. He has this tuned down to D, so not quite as much pull on the strings, and he would just use a capo, but it's pretty amazing. It sat in a storage shed for 20 years in Northeast Ohio with real cold winters and real hot summers, and it still can be tuned up, and with the cowboy chords, playing in frets 1 to 3, you can kind of play it. So that's pretty amazing based on what they did to it, leaving it in that storage shed. Anyway, on the Hack of the Day, we are going to take a look at the truss rod on this guy and risk giving it a little bit of a twist just to improve the action a little bit, actually to improve the slight bow it's got in the neck. And then we'll take the bridge down and improve the action a little bit that way. Eventually I may try to shim it up, but that's for a different show. Anyway, let's go to that Hack of the Day. All right, so we are going to do the little Music Nomad truss rod gauge thing on this, which is 0.2 millimeters. And what we're doing here is we've got a capo on the first fret, and you can't see it's off the camera, but my right hand is holding down the 12th fret with the thicker string on this 12 string. And what I'm going to do is insert that truss rod gauge underneath that thicker string and then run it over the 6th fret. And if the string moves, and you can kind of see it moving there, it might be kind of tough, but it's supposed to touch but not really move much. We are bumping it up just a little bit. So we are going to try to give the truss rod a little bit of a spin and see if we can improve on that. And that's what we'll go to next. Okay, so I got the truss rod cover off here and it's ready to go. I'm going to actually try to loosen this a little bit. So we're going to turn it counterclockwise and just give it a little tweak. And I'm a little concerned about this because, again, this guitar hasn't been touched in a long time. And I've heard many people say that you should try to, even if you're going to tighten the truss rod, you should first loosen it. Okay, got it in. I'm going to give it maybe another 1/8 of a turn. It's really tight. Okay, so I gave the truss rod maybe a 1/4 turn, which might have been a little extreme. They say try an 1/8 of a turn and then remeasure. But if I hold down that, the bigger string at the 12th fret, it's still moving a little bit, but not quite as much as it was before. I think I'm probably going to leave it like that. So the verdict, I can't see doing anything to this guitar. I'm not going to put any firecrackers inside of it or anything like that. It was my brother's guitar, and it's one of the only things I have left to remember him by. And it's one of the things that influenced me to get into guitar myself. I ended up buying an Epiphone FT-160 2 years after he bought this. Mine had the same problems that I talked about before, where the neck was pulling up and it wasn't staying in tune. They gave me another one because they had some kind of lifetime warranty on them at the time or whatever, but the one that they gave me was not nearly as nice as the one I had. And so anyway, I got rid of it eventually. But this one has too many memories in it. I'm going to put it up on the shelf in my guitar room and just keep it around. So let's go on to the next part of things. All right, we're not going to blow up anything or use guitar necks as a baseball bat or anything like that today. We're just going to go over and look at some things that you don't usually see if you just are a casual guitar player inside of guitars. This is what the truss rod looks like on a neck. This is that Galveston that meant an untimely end. This one was adjusted from the sound hole. You put the wrench in there and turn it that way. This is the top of that Galveston guitar, which blew off cleanly, has X bracing on it. So at least they did the bracing right on that. There's another kind of bracing. The only other kind out there typically is called ladder bracing, and it's just straight pattern, a lot like the back of this Galveston, where the braces are just in a straight line across. Gibson J160s that the Beatles liked were like that. Gibson LG0 and LG1s were like that. Not very good. They don't sound that great, and that's one of the reasons they're not very much in favor with acoustic players. A Gibson LG2 or LG3 has cross bracing on it, or X bracing. Taylor doesn't even put bracing on the back anymore of their laminate guitars, their cheaper guitars. They just maybe use a thicker piece of wood because the back is really not going to make that much difference to the sound if it's a laminate. So if you look inside them, they don't even have any braces on them. And on their more expensive guitars, they've gone to a diagonal kind of bracing, which, you know, whether it's that great, is kind of up to the individual. And on Taylor's, they've also monkeyed around with this to where they call it V-class bracing, but it's just kind of a variation on this same kind of thing, where they have a main brace that's like in a V shape, but it's still pretty similar when it comes down to it. And I'm not sure I can really tell the difference. So that's all we've got for you today on the Guitar Hacker 70s Epiphone edition. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if you would, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. God bless.